Hey everyone, my name is Rick, also known as Mirai elsewhere on the internet, and welcome to another video. Now, I recently did a video where I showed how to leak test a water loop for PC water cooling, but using air pressure instead of simply filling it with liquid, crossing your fingers and hoping that you don't have a leak. So I wanted to show, in that video, I talked about some of the components I was using, the extenders, the Bitspower extenders, the pressure gauge, the Schrader valve, etc., etc. This video is going to be just the components that I've got. I've got a new set of stuff here. I'm going to put it together. I talked about how to do it before, but now I'm going to show it. So we've got a second video here, or second camera here, I'm sorry, where I'm on this piece of cardboard, nothing too special. And I've got a brand new 30 PSI pressure gauge, nothing too special. Here's the previous gauge I had. This thing's huge, and now I ordered a much smaller one. If this is a little awkward, I apologize. I am looking into a viewfinder which is upside down for a camera. So this is the prior thing I had, and this is the current one I have. Schrader valve, nothing special. Oh, here's the, if you're looking for the exact thing I've got, this is the part number. There you go. Schrader valves, they're incredibly cheap. And of course, this is what's important for me, is the 1/4" NPT. And let me just briefly talk about that again real quick. I talked about it in the last video, but you don't have to watch that video if you don't want to. There's two different types of threads that we're dealing with. In a water cooling loop, when you're dealing with PC water cooling, the only type of, everything you use, the one universal thing about PC water cooling is that they all use G and 1/4" thread. But out in the real world, I was unable to find anything that resembled G and 1/4" thread. So upon further investigation, I realized that there's two different types of threads. You've got NPT, which is National Pipe Thread. You've got BSP, which is British Standard Pipe. So the G and 1/4" is a BSP thread. Living in the United States, I can't really come by BSP all that easily. I looked around. It seems to be a little difficult to kind of come by them. So I figured there must be a way to do this with NPT thread, and I just figured I would just epoxy it in there. And that's what I did, and that's what my current extender pressure gauge leak test equipment uses, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Now, if you live somewhere where BSP thread is available to you, then maybe you should try to get BSP thread. I mean, I wouldn't try to get NPT thread, but I don't know if that's going to create the ultra seal that you need in order to air pressure test your system. Right, so if you also want to just get BSP thread to fit into the BSP thread for the PC water cooling equipment and still epoxy it together, I'm sure that would work just as well. So again, I've got NPT thread, and we're going into a BSP thread here. So this isn't the extender I'm using, but you do have a choice. I'm going to use these. These are 10mm extenders. You've got your choice of 15, 20, 25. These are 50. These are 50mm extenders. Let's get that in camera a little bit better. And I had mentioned in the prior video that there were some clearance issues. So this is really big, right? And this is even bigger. So you're trying to fit this stuff somewhere in your loop so you can test it with air. And this may not fit everywhere. These are just two fittings I had at the time of building this that I put these together. Now I've got a handful of other fittings that I've dug out of my boxes and whatnot. So we're going to use some different fittings. The other issue that I'll talk about here is that, that I did talk about before as well, is that if you're threading this in and it stops here, right? Say you're in the GPU block, your CPU is right here. How do you see this? How do you see the reading on here? Well, you don't unless you have some sort of rotary thread. So I do have an additional rotary thread here, which is nice. And then you can just spin it around and see what the reading is. Now, I was originally going to get two of these particular fittings right here with the rotary, so I could just spin these at will, thread this in here and spin it at will. I'm a little afraid that this threads in a little too deep. If I'm going to paint these threads with epoxy, I'm going to hit these threads inside of here with epoxy as well. When I thread them together, a little may squish out. I don't put a lot of epoxy on there, but I'm afraid a little is going to squish out. And this rotary section, oh, sorry, the camera, this rotary section is right at the base of the threading. So I don't want any epoxy to hit the rotary section. Not a huge deal, right? We're obviously going to put it into just a 10mm. There's no O-ring on here at the moment, but and then I'll just be able to rotary it around like this. So that's that. So let's get to it, right? I've got some epoxy. I've had this epoxy for years at this point. You can see I've used probably 50% of it, and it's just little projects here and there that I use. You don't necessarily need Gorilla brand epoxy. Any epoxy should do just fine. This is obviously a quick drying, sets in 5 minutes epoxy. If you do go look for a Gorilla brand, this logo may have changed. Again, I've had this for several years, so I have no idea if it all looks the same. We're just going to pop this off. It's a little difficult to get this out of here at times, so we'll see. Okay, so I did get the epoxy up. It just took a little bit of muscle there. And now we're just going to, I've got a toothpick. This is a cap from a gallon jug of water. I'm just going to mix this together. Epoxy has a very distinct smell to it, so I wouldn't mix too much, and I would dispose of it fairly shortly after using it. Okay, so that's probably good. It's just kind of a milky white substance here. We're just going to take some on the toothpick. I'm going to paint it along some of the threads here. Hopefully this is getting in the camera. There we go. Again, you don't need a special Schrader valve. I'm not leaving out any critical information. It's not like you need the Schrader valve with a -B part number or a special. This is just a universal Schrader valve, also known as a tank valve, I believe is what it's also labeled as on the packaging. Really, you can't, this is not new technology. It's very old technology, so it should be pretty easy to find this stuff. So, I didn't think this through too well. Where am I going to set this? Right there? We'll put it on this guy there. Prop it up. So then we'll take our fitting. We'll do the exact same thing. You don't need to glob it on there, just kind of so this is definitely plenty. Getting it all in the threads there, just kind of working it around. And then that, and then we take our Schrader valve and we just put it in. And it looks like I did quite a bit too much, a little too high on the Schrader valve. Not a huge deal, but this, tighten it in there. It's tight. You can see where it is here. The camera wants to focus. Come on, camera. What are you doing to me? There we go. So you can see that. And then I just set it down and let it dry. The epoxy is very sticky stuff. It's not just going to, I didn't goop it in there. It's not just going to drip out of the bottom. It's not going anywhere. It's good. So we're going to do the same thing to this pressure gauge. We'll paint it a little bit lower than we did on the Schrader valve, although I say that and I start a little too high. Epoxy is super adhesive. People use this stuff to permanently seal leaks and whatnot. So this isn't, this isn't some water-soluble glue that you use for some do-it-yourself, I don't know, some home project that doesn't need to be permanent. But this is good stuff. Obviously, don't cover up that, so set that aside. See if I can do this right this time in the camera. And it is quick drying epoxy. You saw that, and it does start to harden fairly quickly. It's not, I wouldn't say it's permanently sealed. Pretty sure on the back of the instructions they say wait X amount of hours, if not a full day before using it. So if you're in a super rush to use this, I probably wouldn't. I would definitely wait a little bit before you try to use this in your build to leak test with. So again, we'll just take these two. Just thread this on there. This goes in a little bit deeper than that one. A little bit. But again, it's nothing, I don't have a bunch of epoxy built up or pooling in there. And close-up of this, if I can figure out how to work the camera here. Come on, camera. And you'll get that little bead along the edge there. I like that. it lets me know that I've definitely got a nice seal going on. So, and that's it. And then we set this down too, if it doesn't want to fall over. So that's it. That's it. That's how you do it. Get any size fitting you want. And again, you can try it in that little rotary fitting. It's only size it comes in that Bitspower offers is a 15 millimeter. So again, I wasn't sure if some epoxy was going to hit the rotary section. It's up to you if you want to try that. Some of these extenders can be a little expensive, but these 10 millimeters, I don't think they're that expensive. So I'll put all this stuff in the description of the video, and maybe the prices I paid, although the prices can fluctuate at any point in time. But this couldn't have been any more than $15. And then also, hold on, you will have seen me use this in the prior video. It's just a handheld bike pump, which is compact. It's stores itself in here. Just thread it on, and then you can use a bike pump, like a foot pump. You can use an air compressor if you want. I use this simply because it's compact, and I keep it in a little box along with the rest of my leak pressure test gear. So it's easy to just keep it in a box with everything else. Also, one note, I'm not sure if using an air pressure would pump air too quickly into a system. I'm not sure, but I don't have one to test, and I don't have that knowledge. So that's that. That is how you build one of these. Let it dry overnight and air pressure test your system for leaks. You can watch the prior video I did using the bigger versions. After these dry, or maybe not, maybe before, I have another system to test. So those will all these videos will be linked in the description or in the top comment that I pin. But thank you for watching. Again, my name is Rick, also known as Mirai, and I will see you in the next video.